Hello, everybody. Welcome to the seminar today. And today, Joey and I will talk about reimagining the future of multicultural collections. Before we do our acknowledgements of countries, we wanted to share that both Joey and I speak Cantonese as our first language, and this webinar explored multicultural collection. So we would like to start our acknowledgements of country in Cantonese. 我哋向天地同河流嘅傳統用有意義，並向過去我哋向世上最悠久持續嘅文化致敬。We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the Macquarie University land, the Wallumattagal clan of the Darug Nation, whose cultures and customs have nurtured and continue to nurture this land since the Dreamtime. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. We also acknowledge that we are on the land of the Wurundjeri, Wurrung, and Bungarong people. In the spirit of reconciliation, Homesland reconciles and celebrates the traditional owners of the lands throughout Victoria and beyond on which we educate and train. We pay our respect to elders past, present, and acknowledge our emerging leaders. So today, Joey and I will talk about the multicultural collections, and this is the most recent data on public library memberships that we could find, and we will happily accept any update. In 2021, there was about 8.4 million library memberships, and many of these members would use a language other than English at home. To frame our webinar, I would like to adopt Professor Rudin Sims Bishop's 1990 keynote addressed at the California State University Reading Conference. So this concept of windows and mirrors in children's books has been adopted extensively to discuss multiculturalism. The original title of the keynote address was Windows and Mirrors, Children's Books and Parallel Cultures. As quoted, books are sometimes windows offering views of worlds that may be real or imagined, familiar or strange. These windows are also sliding glass doors, and readers have only to walk through and in imagination to become part of whatever world has been created or recreated by the author. When lighting conditions aren't just right, however, windows can also be a mirror, reflecting back for us the joys and sorrows, the loves and hate, the pain, and the pleasure of living. So, researchers frequently use this metaphor to analyze the number of multiculturally diverse characters in children's books and argue for the inclusion of more culturally diverse characters. Educators and librarians use the mirrors, windows, and sliding doors metaphor to rethink and tally the children's books that they put in the libraries and use in the classrooms. The frameworks to introduce inclusiveness is probably very familiar to many children's librarians as well. Now let's extend and expand this simple but elegant framework to multicultural collections. So we have two items on agenda today. So first, Joey will talk about the Trove list project, and then I would discuss the reimagining the future of multicultural collections. And over to you, Joey.
Thank you, Alice. So now let's get started with my part about the Trove project. Before going into the deep down of the Trove project, let's have some fun. So attendees, please scan the QR code on the screen, and then it will link you to the Mentimeter. And then now Amy will take over to share the screen for the Mentimeter screen so that you can see the question on the screen. It will be fun. If you have attended my presentation before, I guarantee you that this question is not the same. So please don't try to pull out your hand and see whether or not you can remember the answer from the last time. It is different. Okay. So the QR code is here again. And then if you are joining from the other device and then you can use the QR code, you can go to www.menti.com and then enter the code 85225281. Then you will be able to access our quiz. A fun game. So I can see people are going in. Great. Still coming. That's good. Okay. Looks like we have... Okay, people are still coming. That's good. Looks like it's okay. Yep, looks like it's okay. The number stopped. So
Okay,
Amy,
we'll go to the next screen.
we go to the next screen. The first question. The Ghost Book by Remy Lai has been translated into which language? So you have the option of Chinese, French, Japanese, and Spanish. While you're thinking which answer to put in, let me give you a bit background of this book. This graphic novel is the winner of the Victorian Premier's Literary Awards, shortlisted for the 2024 Prime Minister's Literary Awards. This is the story about July Chen, who sees ghosts, and her adventures with William in the Hungry Ghost Month. The answer is coming. Any more? Anything coming? Okay, I think everyone has put in their result. Okay, last call. Put in your answer before I disclose the answer to you. Okay, 1, 2, 3, stop. No more answer. And thank you everyone who jumped in my setup trap for you. The answer for this question is actually French. Yes, this book translated into French first as of the 17th of September 2024. But I deliberately make Chinese into this, what I give you as one of the answer, because this is a stereotype. Remy is like have the Asian background, and because it's talking about the Hungry Ghost Month, and by default, for some reason, people think that it must be translated into Chinese. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases, a lot of Australian author, even they have Asian background, the first translated version of their work usually is not Chinese. So once again, thank you for jumping into my trap, and let me show you the stereotype we all have in our mind. Okay, next question, please. Okay, so this Japanese comic, I'm not sure how many of you can understand Japanese, so the direct title translation is Until That Day I Didn't Know Love. It's based on which Australian romance novel? I can't give you the summary of the book because once I tell you the story, any romance reader will know exactly which book it is. So have a guess which book is based on. This comic book is based on which Australian romance story? Interesting. Looks like a lot of people think that it is Rachel's work. Is there any more answer to come in? Everyone is happy with this result? Okay. Drum roll, please. The answer of this question is Tycoon's Temptation by Tris Mori. It has nothing to do with Rachel. Rachel's Talk to the Heart romance is actually about an outback romance, so it's not about this one. Okay. Then we are going to have the next question. This is an open-end question. So to you, what does the term multicultural collection means to you? So not sure how many of you actually from multicultural background, but from your point of view, what does multicultural collection means to you? So it means home, representation, languages, inclusive, accessible, different perspective and representation, collection in different languages, collection showcase multicultural story and appeal to a multicultural audience, different views from different culture, connection to the family, option for experiencing other cultures, books and online resources in language other than English. And then culturally and linguistically diverse authors and exploring the theme outside of the Anglo and Western experience. This is a good one. Okay. So from the screen, we can see it is a lot of you think that it's diversity, inclusion, and then it is like talking about the community we serve as well. Okay. So in this presentation, apart from my Trove list and Alice will talk about the future of this multicultural collection in the library world and in the sense of librarian as well. So that's why we try to put in this one and see how you think about multicultural collection before our presentation. So thank you for everyone's input. Hopefully you had fun with my little quiz. And now back to my presentation. So Alice, please share the screen. Thank you. Okay. So for those who don't know me, I'm Joey from Homesglen, and I'm part of the Alia Multicultural and the lead of the Trove project. So what is this project is like basically is collecting a multiple list of Australian literature that has translated into other languages. So if you scan the QR code on the page in here, then you will link to our page that has a collection of all the Trove lists that we have created. You may wonder what drives this project. So I have a Chinese Bookstagram account. Bookstagram account. So before I set up my account, I didn't realize that many of the Australian literature actually translated into Chinese or even other languages. And overseas Instagrammer are keen on discussing the Australian literature which has been translated into other languages. I tried to search for publicly available translated Australian literature resources, and there's not much out there. That makes me start to wonder, if a librarian didn't know about it, how can the other readers find out the information by themselves? Okay, so you may ask like, Joey, you are like inside the Bookstagrammer. Well, a algorithm will just push the similar information to you, and then like it may not be a big need out there. So now, as a librarian, I give you some facts. So according to the 2022 National Survey of Australian Books Author, there was 1,152 authors participated in this survey. And this is not yet. So out of like 1,152 authors, 395 of them indicated their work has been translated into other languages. When asking which languages their work has been translated into, they can choose more than one languages. So in the survey, we can see for those who said that their work has been like translated into other languages, 41.8% has been translated into German, 40.5% has been translated into French, 30.6% has been translated into Chinese, Mandarin, and or Cantonese. 26.1% has been translated into Spanish and Italian, and 20.8% has been translated into Korean. So according to the survey, quite a lot of work has been translated. But do we or other readers know about it? Okay, so even if you are not into K-pop, I believe you have listened to at least one K-pop song in your life by now. either from the radio, shopping mall, social media, or random YouTube video or other streaming services. K-pop is the worldwide phenomenal pop culture in the last decade. K-pop opened the door to the Korean culture, and then Korean literature is slowly being known by the people outside Korea. Especially when an idol saying that I'm reading this book, and then their fans were just like crazy to get the copy of the book, and then even in translated version. You may not read a Korean literature before, but I'm sure you have seen the translated version of the Welcome to the Hunnam Dong bookstore or pachinko somewhere online or in the bookstore, or even watch pachinko in Apple TV before. One day I was searching for a book called I Want to Die But What I Want to Eat Tteokbokki by Park Hee-shin. Then I came across to the Digital Library of Korean Literature, which is the screenshot on the screen. And then if you scan the QR code at the bottom, you'll be able to go to the page directly. They have a collection of ebooks of the Korean literature translated into different languages. Most importantly, overseas people like me in Australia can borrow the ebook via Libby. So this is a good way to promote Korean literature to the world and not just limited to the Korean market only. This is the light bulb moment. It's like, why can't we have the centralized Australian literature resources like this and it is free to public? It is not just promoting Australian literature to the diverse community we are serving, but also people outside Australia promoting Australian literature. Without any major funding, government support, and lots of legal contract with the vendors, it is impossible to do something like the Digital Library of Korean Literature. So why don't we fully utilize our resources that we have on our hand? Hence the Trove list. So we are not able to provide the ebooks access, but Trove records at least can tell you which library has this book. And then I make a prototype to pitch the idea to the earlier Multicultural. Alice is kindly jumping into the rabbit hole with me, and then here you come. This is the project. So before I go into demo the Trove list we have, here there is a very funny background story to share with you. So Alice and I first started Australian fiction translated into Chinese, and then Australian nonfiction translated into Chinese Trove list. So that two were our initial lists. When we launched the list, Christopher Chang, the beloved children's book author, saw the Facebook post and then approached Alice and then wondering if we can set up a children's books list. It is proven that there is some demand in the market, even from the author point of view, that they need to have a list of translated Australian literature. By the way, does anyone know which Facebook post that Christopher has referred to? Because I'm really keen to have a look who posts our list and then caught his attention. Okay, so now I'm going to do a demo of the Trove list for you, and just bear with me for a second. Here I am. I'm going to share my screen now. So if you scan the QR code on the first page of my presentation, then you will come to this Australian literature translated into other language page in Alia Multicultural website. So in here, this is a collection of the list we have. So we have the fiction one, non-fiction one, and picture books. So for example, picture books, if you go to the translated in the Chinese one, for example, because that is our initial work in a way, then you can see that here is a list of 520 items has been Australian children's book has been translated into Chinese, and then you can see the title, and then the simplified Chinese title, the romanization in case you can read Chinese, and then the ISBN. And for those who has different like simplified Chinese version and the traditional Chinese title, we put it in as well, and then with the romanization and the ISBN. With the limitation of Trove, we can't have the search option, search function in here, but you can like sort it by title and then try to go and find the info, the title you are after according to the alphabetical order. And you can, if like this list is a bit too long for you, you can download the list and then work on it on your own as well. So this is the very brief demo of our Trove list, and this is how we do our work. And then currently we have quite a lot of them right now. Okay, so this is the brief demo, and then now go back to the slide, please, Alice. And I'm going to stop sharing first before you can share it. Yeah. So for now, the available Trove list we have is, for the fiction one, we have Chinese, French, German, Japanese, Spanish, and then non-fiction one is Japanese and Chinese and Japanese. For the picture book, we have Catalan, Chinese, Dutch, French, German, Italian, Japanese, and Korean, Portuguese, Spanish, and Turkish. So this is the list for now, and we are going to have more lists in 2025. Some highlight of our list: we have more than 300 items in Chinese, French, German, and Spanish fiction list. 400 plus items in the Japanese fiction list, 500 items plus in the Chinese children picture books list. And some funny facts about the Japanese fiction list, as you can see from my Mentimeter quiz just now. Some of the Australian romance has actually have an unusual collab in Japan. Some of them has been like reimaged the story to a manga, which is the comic in Japan, which is a new way of collaboration, turning Australian literature in a popular culture locally, and may attract people who don't usually read books to read Australian literature in a way. So more lists to come in the future. And then you can see from the screen, like Alice showing just now, Trove has a promotional piece about a project in their website, and then they do Facebook posts as well. They talk about our project, the Trove List project. It's a collaboration with them to promote our Trove list as well. If you haven't read it, you can find it on Trove. So before handing the spotlight to Alice to talk about the future of the multicultural collection, I would like to take this opportunity to thank and give a big shout out to the project team. It takes a village to raise a child. It applies to this project as well. Thank you everyone who contributed to this project. This project couldn't be this big without your support. Thank you the A-team. Thank you my partner in crime, and everyone who has contributed to the project. We are looking for volunteers to join this ongoing project. So if you are interested in helping and contributing to this Trove list, please contact us. So that's it from my Trove project, and then I'll hand it back to Alice. Thank you, everyone.
So thank you, Joey. And we're also hoping that you may be using the Trove list if you're not contributing here. And so the Trove list project provide an innovative and different ways to potentially use the multicultural collection as windows into Australian literature and culture, and as sliding doors to engage the culturally and linguistically diverse communities to understand and explore Australian cultures differently. I would like to draw our attention back to New South Wales, and we know that community language items are very popular. Okay, so I will be introducing some of the projects that we have been working with the State Library of New South Wales. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Alice Chik. I'm with the Macquarie School of Education at Macquarie University. So hi everybody. And with the State Library, we look at the digital futures of multicultural collections and services. Okay, so we know that the community language items are very, very popular. Okay, and we also created a map of community language collections in New South Wales at different libraries. Okay, so this is in addition to the State Library collections there. So if you scan the QR code, you will get to the Google map. Okay, so in 2024, the State Library of New South Wales celebrated the 50th anniversary of the multicultural collections and services. What I found really fascinating is that English as a second language resources are part of the multicultural collections and services. Okay? So what does that actually say something about? What does it mean for thinking about the mirrors, windowed ideas with the multicultural collections? And now we have different forms of books in 43 languages, large print, audio books, Fox books, and we also have lots of ESL resources. Okay. Over the last years, although that the name of the collections changed from Foreign Language Learning Service to Multicultural Service in 1988, the multicultural collections and services are still framed as being important for immigrants as it was in 1972 surveyed. And we can say that the collections and services are serving as a mirror function. That means that when I go into the library and see collections in Chinese, I see myself in these collections. Okay, this is in a way it could be very important because we can see that, for example, here, senior members of the library users say that like they feel welcome knowing that they can borrow Korean books and magazines from the Strathfield Library, and that doing so reduce feelings of isolations. So it is important that they have more emotional valued, not just books and items in the library. Okay. Now, just in case, if you're not in the New South Wales, this is a simplified version of thinking about the acquisitions of multicultural collection and services in public library. So the state library, the big building there, could provide bulk loan and additional collections to different libraries, and then the smaller libraries in the smaller councils may have a smaller budget with books, but the big councils may have the bigger collections because of the budget. But then the state library could support smaller council and smaller libraries with a bigger bulk loan transfer. Okay? So the state library has been providing bulk loan service since 1974, and just take an example with the public library branches. With the city of Ryde, that's where my university is, that we have 5 public libraries from the library collections that they have load books in Chinese, Korean, and Tamil. And then the state libraries also put in and supported for Russian, Italian, and French, for example, and additional languages as requested. Now, and of course, this is just for the acquisitions part, the side of the collections. And in a 2018 document, benchmarking public library services to multicultural communities, 5 relevant areas were selected. And I'm using the terms used in the document. So there are 5 benchmark criteria. We're looking at the planning for library services relevant to non-English speaking background clients, organizational capacity to develop and deliver multicultural services and collections, quality of multicultural services and collections, promotions and delivery, and finally, evaluation. Okay, so now we have the basics about the acquisitions and the benchmarkings of the multicultural collections, and that will be beyond the scopes of this webinar. And let's go to 2 wonderful libraries. In our collaboration, we visited 4, and today we're only going to 2 library systems, the Blacktown City Libraries and the Central Northern Regional Libraries. Okay, so the 2 libraries network serves very different clients, as shown by the census data. So just in case you don't know where they are, so the Blacktown Libraries is closer to Sydney, not exactly in Sydney. And then the Central Northern Regional Library, and we're particularly talking about Tamworth, that is about an hour on flight away from Sydney. So with a more diverse population in the Blacktown City area, we're looking at 46.3% of the population and residents use language other than English at home. And then you can see that with the library system, they have a bigger collections of languages available. Okay, and then with the CNRL's system, they serve a regional area with emerging culturally and linguistically diverse community, and it's changed very rapidly in the last 3 years, and that population growth have yet to be captured by the 2021 census data. So it will be really interesting to see the 2026 census data. From the 2021 census, we see that like only 5.8% use load at home, but there is a rapid population growth, as I said, and as it is, like the library itself does not have community languages, but they have a lot of books from the state library. So with a more diverse population, library visitors to the Blacktown City Libraries are greeted with a multilingual welcome sign, as you can see on the left. This is exactly like a mirror sign of like saying my language and to welcome me. And then at the Tamworth Libraries here, the display of multilingual books serve as windows to visitors that I may not speak a particular language, but there are these books for different communities and for different readers. So librarians have a very clear pictures of the changing demographic diversity in the local area, and they're also tracking generational changes. So librarians are using the movable stacks here in the Blacktown Libraries, city libraries, to give visibility of the collections as mirrors to reflect local diversity and also as windows into multiculturalism. As seen is the photos taken in the Blacktown city's Max Weber's library. A library user may not read Tamil, but the recommendation are visible to windows to exploring different cultures and languages. And so the librarians talk about there's a shift from the European to South and East Asian language communities, and there are also long time and also versus newly arrived resident. And it is important to have high visibility of the load collections. And because Blacktown City is within the refugees welcoming zone, so there's a different changes and different configuration of diversity as opposed to other parts of metropolitan Sydney as well. So it's interesting that to see the different turnovers of the load collections and the demand for multicultural services. Okay? And the important information that libraries are free, libraries are safe spaces. It's actually extremely important because some newly arrived residents are not necessarily familiar with the idea that libraries could be free. Okay? That's from some of their own personal history that they may not even understand that concept. So, but when we go to the Central Northern Regional Libraries, for example, that we're looking at, particularly Tamworth library photos taken there, that the regions serve are very different. Then they're growing very, very rapidly with a diverse range of industry, from meat packing to medical facilities. And that means that the library members have a huge range of needs. For example, leisure reading versus English learning needs. Like we can imagine that people who are working at the meat packing factories will have very different demands to people who are actually working as medical researchers. And so that's actually quite interesting. And because of the impact over COVID for the immigration constraint, the 2021 census did not fully capture the cultural and linguistically diverse population. So our analysis shows that many of the most commonly used language groups have fewer than 500 users. Okay? So that means that according to the benchmark documents, then under 1,000 users is less likely to have budget funding allocations for the collections, and a huge populations of the diverse populations arrive in the last 10 years. So for the libraries, they have been creative to how to think about creating the multicultural service space that they host a not-for-profit multicultural organization, and the hosting of the multicultural multicultural organizations create a third cultural space in the library and allow users from different backgrounds to make connections. So they were there. So when we visit the libraries, and there were people having discussion, having morning teas, and also have English learning spaces, English conversation classes, and it's a great idea as that it is an example of the sliding door example of using multicultural services as engagement, especially for the newly arrived. Okay? So you can see the photos there, but public libraries are also more than physical spaces. Okay, that's for example from the City of Ryde public libraries in Eastwood. We have a lovely little standalone building as the library, but we're also shifting to the 24/7 ideas of digital libraries. We have the apps, we have different ebook platforms and storytelling platforms and multimedia platforms as well. So when we think about the digital futures, there is a tendency to think of a seamless flow from a physical collections to a digital transitions, just like instead of opening up a book, just like the visual here that you just opened a laptop, voila, everything is smooth and it's effortless and into digital form. And do we envision that digital transition as a one-way or two-way flow? At the start of the pandemic, we heard about the digital future as the best, if not only way forward. But now we're hearing that print books are still holding off competitions to ebook, but audiobooks are increasingly popular. So the digital resources are ever-changing spaces, which is very exciting. And not all libraries have the same set of digital resources, except Indeed in New South Wales as developed. And interestingly, when we get into the digital space, like for example, if we go to the Libby, or if we are going to the borrow box, there are many, many positive aspects. Okay, so first of all, there's a growing numbers of languages other than English items, especially newspaper and magazines, and the user have 24/7 access, and there are a lot of multimedia resources, and we absolutely love that the librarian curated collections of, for example, here that's on Libby that we have a community languages collections, so that when you get onto the Libby platform, then when we scroll down to the phone, either on your mobile or on your computer, then you can see that there are actually community languages. But as much as we love the digital collections and resources, they don't serve the same idea as the mirror or window as the physical collections for library users when they enter a library space, a physical space here. And it's actually quite interesting because when the users are returning after COVID, they're not exactly just digital resources users. Okay, so when we think about that in 2024, the State Library provides more than 69,000 items in 43 languages. How do we kind of think about these items as being transitioned and being turned into value creations for library user who say that the library's collections have different values than just being read or being listened to or watched? Okay, so in that idea of thinking about libraries, collections, and services as value creation in social learning spaces, I would like to introduce using the Wenger and Trainer's framework of value creation framework. And these are the people who brought to us the community of practice 20 years ago. And 20 years on, they move on to the value creation. When you think about social learning space, this idea has been used a lot with businesses, corporate, and also with institutions. That a social learning space as a particular experience that takes place among people in pursuit of learning to make a difference. And as I read their work, and it sounds more and more like the interviews that we have from librarians, they're all talking about the difference they would like to make for library users who come to particular libraries or use the resources. And the participant finds value in a social learning space, for example, in a library, to the extent that their participation is seen as learning to a difference that matters to them. It's like when we talk about that quote on how they feel safe and how they feel welcome in the library. So they have 4 different domains of looking at how to think about a learning space for value creation. We have immediate and potential, okay, that talk about the experience of participating in the space that have a value in and of itself. So like just going into the library, for example, that you don't necessarily are borrowing an item, but just being there and could have value, that you feel safe, you feel welcome, you feel being a members of the communities. And then to the potential, because it has yet to prove useful or practice. It could be to encourage people to check out items or to check out the collections. And then we also have applied and realized in 2 sets for applied, that are either applying potential value or in trying to make a difference by applying oneself to address a challenge, a situation, or an opportunity. When we talk about the realized value, it's the difference participants here to make. And it is not necessarily the whole thing. It could be actual achievement, big and small, that takes them further on the path of thinking about the value of the learning space. And then we have the going beyond just the an immediate experience, that we actually start moving towards the policy, start thinking about the infrastructures, that we look at the enabling value of looking at the sustainability of value creation, that it can provide the support or putting in place an infrastructure. So that could be thinking about the staff development, professional development, and or putting in strategic value, the energies and conversation that drive the learning. So that could mean engagement with stakeholders, not-for-profit organization, community members, community organization, or faith-based organizations, for example. And we move further out to think about how to support libraries as value-creating spaces. Then we look at the orienting valued, represent the efforts to reach beyond the learning space and the stakeholder, and take this broader landscape into account. We could be talking about the policy. We could be talking about strategic plans into the futures. And we also look at the transformative value that change the context in which a social learning space operates, and therefore the very conditions under which social learning can continue to make a difference. So that could mean with some libraries network, that could be of rethinking the whole use of space, the physical space, or in many of the new building of the library's building itself, how it's got integrated within a larger community, also within the council's work there. So we are kind of reframing and thinking about the collection and services, and we look at the published and publicly available strategic plans, cultural policy released by the libraries or sometimes the city council. And we collected a total of 118 documents. And we think about how do these documents collectively think about libraries as learning spaces, as public learning spaces, and also for creating value for communities, for user, and for also the librarians themselves. Of course, we have some limitation is that different libraries and councils could be in different cycles of formulating the strategic plan. So we couldn't get documents from every library or local government agents. And we analyzed the metropolitan developed UDV with population of over 120,000 people. We have 13 documents, okay, and 10 documents out of 13 mentioned, very interestingly, mentioned multicultural or related, for example, language collections or multicultural collection and services. When we look at the fringe library network, there are 7 as categorized by the State Library. These are also over 120,000 residents. Only 3 out of 7 of those documents mentioned multicultural collections and services. With the regional, all 3 mentioned multicultural component. So some of the excerpt that we take out when we talk about what does it mean when we mentioned multicultural collections and services or languages. So these are examples like a creative and caring, healthy community that celebrate cultures and diversity, or increase the size of the Celt collections and review the languages held by the library, or like something like throughout our ever-increasing accessibility, curate and growing multilingual collections and considerations around repurposed physical spaces. These libraries are growing our relevancy as well-being hubs for the community. So you can see that the 3 excerpts that talks about multicultural collections and services are very different in a way. And so how do we think about supporting library in the futures to look at the multicultural collection and also considers what can be done there? Okay, so we then kind of put in to think that if we look at the values, that we can look at the immediate and the potential, the kind of excerpt on or the data that kind of match that. Is talking about increasing the size, increasing the collections, and then for the potential is a creative, caring, and healthy community that celebrates cultures and diversity, but that's into the futures rather than necessarily like what's immediate. And then we have the applied and realized, ensuring that libraries are welcoming and culturally appropriate is a priority. So that it wants to kind of like shows how to be done, but maybe kind of thinking about steps that are still maybe missing, and then the strategic and enabling, and particularly as we move forward that to the bigger space of looking at orienting and transforming, that we are not seeing as much of the discussions. Okay, that what is interesting of looking into the strategic plans and cultural policy is that there are a lot of discussions about that there are certain values of the cultural collections and services, but there are a lot more about the immediate and the potentials rather than thinking about the bigger pictures of engagement, for example, strategic and enabling level of talking with the stakeholder, for example, or engaging with other organizations, or partnering with schools, and So by possibly applying this value creation framework, it could be a way of having a more systematic way of looking at reimagining how the collections and services could benefit the communities and also with the librarians' workforce. Okay. So when we think about reimagining the public libraries, that what is actually quite interesting is that definitely we are reframing and reimagining multicultural collection and services as mirrors and windows to see public libraries as spaces of and for cultural awareness and awareness, but it's also value creation spaces. The concept of awareness, as in where do we find them, is borrowed from Professors Nigel Thruth and Human Geographer on conceptualizing the representation of information technology and space. When a library members or potential library members steps into a library, they are invited to a wonderful world of knowledge, cultures, and imagination. They're invited to see more of different cultures through the windows of our multicultural collection and services, but they're also invited to feel included and safe when they see themselves through the reflections and mirrors of the collections and services. Through the windows, we feel included to know that they are represented. We also become aware of others' cultures, and we rejoice in everyone's culture and celebrate. Digital futures and reimagined futures should and will ensure that the physical and the digital space, and it's more than just engaging, but it's also is linked and connected to the value creation process that will have a more sustainable and a long-lasting effect into the futures with changing diversity and changing super diversity as well as there. So, and that's what we're going. I'm just going to stop here for any and questions. And thank you so much. And we'll welcome any comment and questions and suggestions.
Thank you so much, Alice. This is amazing research.
Thank you.